All right, and we are back with another panel. I'm sitting here with Fredrik Timour and Muchaneta Kapfunde, and we're going to talk about fashion and technology, which is a super exciting topic. Um, I'm so excited about this. I really want to have you guys on and perhaps give a little bit of a longer perspective on the world of fashion than where we're at right now. I mean, issues of can fashion become digital in the same way I've seen other industries like entertainment and gaming, for example, or what happens when our clothes become connected. Fredrik, you are founder of Fashion Innovation Center here in Stockholm, and Muchaneta, you are editor-in-chief and founder of Fashnerd. I'm going to start with you, Muchaneta. You've been covering this topic in your own platform for a few years. So how did you get into it?
Well, I come from a fashion background. That's my history. I started in publications and I moved into fashion PR. And the reason why I started Fashnerd is because I've always been passionate about technology, but I felt like it wasn't being translated correctly. And that's why the industry wasn't excited about it. Because if you don't understand something, how you expect it to be excited about it, how you expect it to use it. So Fashnerd was born on just the frustration that I had that the industry was unable to comprehend the role that technology can play in making it help, make better business decisions. So Fashnerd started, I remember when I first started it, I had a community of one. And within 6 months, we'd grown to 20,000. And now we're standing, I think, at 87,000 in our community. So it's grown. And that showed me there was a kind of a need to talk about technology. It just had to be translated in a language that more people understand.
And what were some of the unlocks for you in the beginning in terms of finding a way to connect with it? As you said, the problem was connecting with technology, so sort of from a fashion perspective. Where did you see it? Was it wearables? What was it?
I started off writing a lot more about wearables because they were kind of like picking up momentum at the time when I started. And I began first by building a community. Because in my head, I was thinking, what's the point of writing about technology if I don't have anyone to read it? So what we did at the end of 2014, we started to build this community. And then we started Fashnerd officially in January 2015. So you kind of have to have that engagement, when it comes to writing about this space. It's a very small niche. Not everyone knows about it. So you need to make sure that you kind of are able to give people the kind of information that they want, or are you able to educate them? So we are really big fans of educating the majority. We try and speak to consumers. We try and speak to the industry. And we just kind of give a bird's eye view of what fashion technology means.
So let's take that bird's eye view and Fredrik, I'm going to move over to you and let's kind of frame the issue a little bit here. Obviously the reason we're here, it's called the Transformation Conference. These industries are standing on the verge of huge shifts and changes. Where do you see the issues going forward? Basically what's the problem with the fashion industry that needs to be solved, do you think?
Well, as I see it, the problems as I see it, and I have to say, I'm not sitting with all the answers, of course, but as I see it, I think one is, of course, sustainability. Everybody knows that that's a big problem. Another one is actually revenue sources itself, like make money. And the third is business models. And of course, they go hand in hand, all of these. And I think that the fashion industry, if you look at you mentioned it yourself, that other industries or sibling industries like the entertainment industry and gaming industry have found completely new business models. You don't sell Monopoly anymore as a box. You do, by the way, but they found other business models that seems to be very good revenue streams. And I think that's really the problem for the fashion industry, is that they're not prepared at all for this. You don't have users, you're not prepared, you have done any R&D or research and development, you haven't built any IP into the companies, but you relied on a quite old fashion model, business model, sorry, which you could call fashion model at the moment, I guess. But so I think that's the main problem, to really like finding business models that goes hand in hand with sustainability. So make more money while being more sustainable through kind of business models.
Give us some example here, because I think this is where many people have trouble connecting with this issue. We sometimes you hear about a company that's sort of the Netflix of something or the Spotify of this and that, but essentially we think of fashion, we think of garments that's being sold in stores, that's being opened all across the globe. Can fashion be something else than just garments? It's a question for both of you. I'm curious. Muchaneta.
We talked about this yesterday, actually. We talked about it over dinner. It was all about looking at how can we change the industry so it's like Netflix. Imagine having your wardrobe on your phone. Imagine being able to imagine paying a subscription and you can, let's say I can pick this dress and then I wear it to this conference and then I send it back. And then so being able to pick and choose. So you have a wardrobe with many things, but you're not actually having a physical wardrobe with all your clothes in it. If you get what I mean.
So the comparison would be instead of having all the CDs in your shelf, you have a Spotify subscription and everything available. Something like that.
Indeed,
exactly.
Yes.
But also, I mean, another thing that these types of model enhance, I would say, is creativity as well. Because if you have a model where you could have a dress and send it back, would you most probably choose a more outrageous dress, or at least have the possibility? Probably.
Yeah, you probably would, because the fact that you know that it's not a dress that you wear every day, but you'll be more, I guess, brazen to try it out, because you know that you got a subscription and you got a certain amount of clothes that you can kind of subscribe to or get every month, and we think it's a model that you might be able to apply it to fashion, because my Netflix account, for example, I pay whatever it is a month, and I get access to all these movies and TV shows. Netflix have me as a customer for God knows how long, and they don't have to worry about something going wrong because they have me as a customer. They're always going to get that money out every month. It's just the way the model works. So imagine if H&M was able to do the same thing.
And another thing that we talked about, just need to add, is the experience layer, because if you have this wardrobe that we talked about, that is a streaming wardrobe in lack of better terms, but I mean it's similar, at least if we're going to make the comparison, let's call it a streaming wardrobe. If you add a layer, so we were talking yesterday about, for example, HBO TV shows that we both liked, and we both reacted the same way when one of us mentioned the show, like, wow, yeah, and then we realized that excitement was a very long time since we got from fashion. That excitement of
that connection.
So I mean, just imagine if you take Peaky Blinders or some other show and you add that on top. So when you get your clothes home, you also get a cigar or a special whiskey or an experience, and you're emotionally connected to that garment. And I mean, if a company does that already have users, credit cards, etc. Well,
now you're onto something interesting, because we do see these examples happening. We see rental services, we see I think subscription services as well, but they all start from a sort of grassroots. They're startups. They're trying to get momentum and so forth. What you're, I think, alluding to is what would happen if a Spotify or a similar service would start providing clothes, because the reach is obviously already there, right?
Yeah.
Could that happen?
Yeah, I mean, electricity company created a refrigerator and revolutionized our business. I mean, but that was General Electric's. And if you look at it, I mean, a lot of companies that
what do you mean by that example? Electricity company started a refrigerator. What was happening before? What do you mean?
I mean, before that, people bought pieces of ice or blocks of ice, to cool down whatever they needed to cool down, and that was a whole business in and out of itself. But that business disappeared when General Electric introduced the refrigerator.
I think what Fredrik was trying to say, it was something that we were discussing earlier, where change might come not from fashion but from another industry. So I think his point is like all these people were making these ice blocks, and that was their business, to provide these ice for companies. And then in comes General Electric with a product that completely eradicates all these ice block businesses. And and in terms of fashion, maybe what will change the industry will come from somewhere else. Maybe it might be scientists. It might be, we don't know. But change might not come from fashion itself.
So you're saying basically that H&M is the maker of the ice? that's going to go away,
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying in the sense that, yeah.
Well, there isn't a nice way to say it, but in a way.
But I think that most businesses in fashion have that opportunity to change. And it's not a matter of one or the other. I think it's a matter of working together, collaborating to go forward.
Well, I guess one analogy would be that it wasn't, a music, one of the music companies that created the streaming service, right? Because they were in the business of selling these CDs. That could be another analogy to use.
And it wasn't Warner Brothers that created the streaming video service.
Right. So,
and blockbusters, I mean, that's all that needs to be said about them. You'd have thought they would be the ones who were leading that, because blockbusters, everyone had new blockbusters, but unfortunately they were too late to the game. And when they did finally do it, everybody had already moved on to another company that was offering them a lot more than what Blockbusters was putting on the table.
Is there now, because now we're talking about the sort of distribution form of physical garments still, I'm wondering, can fashion be something else than the physical garment? I'm thinking, of course, when I look at my daughter, for instance, she's 10 years old. She comes home from school. I mean, she got two parents who are interested in fashion, so she, we kind of, I guess, forced that upon her. So she's interested in clothes, but when she asks for something extra, she wants, another, some points on Roblox or Fortnite or any of these platforms that, essentially where she meets her friends today. She comes home, she logs on, she meets her friends within these worlds, and she buys various types of attributes that could very well be likened to fashion. Are you following my thought here?
I think,
could fashion be as digital as actually things in the computer or the phone?
Yeah, first of all, I think that the fashion industry completely missed one thing, and that's that, especially the younger generation, is, I would say 50% online, 50% IRL, and they don't see a difference. That's a floating for them, if they are online or not online. And especially, like you said, our kids, for example, when they play around in Fortnite, that's like a play yard. That's another just playground for them. But they need to express their identity. And I mean, at the core of fashion somewhere is identity. And if people are online, they need to express their identity. And then you need tools to do that. That is not clothes, but it's still fashion. And I really think that the fashion industry completely missed that, or neglected, or use whatever word you want. But they are not there for people online. I can't use fashion to express my identity online. More or less.
Do you agree?
I agree completely. I mean, there's a few fashion designers, and I won't name drop, who have tried to create clothes for, our online versions of ourselves. But it seems more of a PR stunt. They do it, and then it's never done again. So we need something that's a bit more, committed. We need them to commit a little bit more to it. Because, I'm not a gamer, and I've been reading up a lot on gaming and fashion. And it's a massive opportunity for the industry to make so much money from people willing to buy these clothes in order to express their identity online. But no one's tapping into it yet.
But couldn't it be, one could argue that it's actually already happening. We're just not calling it fashion. I don't know, Fortnite what's the turnover is like $2 or $3 billion each year. And all they're selling is skins, right? It's skins. They have their avatar and they're selling different skins. What's a skin? It's some kind of clothing. It looks different. It relates to the identity of the user. That's got to be fashion, right? Why aren't we calling that fashion?
But that's one of the things that I usually bring up. This Fortnite example. Is Fortnite one of the biggest fashion houses in the world? Do we already have it? Are we missing that it's already happening? And I think in a way, yes, because what Fortnite is doing in their own play yard is exactly that. They give people an identity, online identity in their game. But I would argue that even Spotify helps me more to express my identity than the fashion business, because if I'm into a forum, for example, and discussing something, I can paste a snippet of code and get a playlist in that forum. And that playlist is like a band t-shirt because it tells something about me and what I like, and I can be cool or whatever I want. But it helps me express my identity. So Spotify helps me more. What I'm talking about is those digital rooms where that it's not designed for that specific. I mean, like Fortnite is Fortnite, but when I'm in another forum somewhere else, what can I use to express my identity in that room? Just like I can have my suit wherever I go. It's not just a specific room that I can use my suit in. And a very simple but good example is just a snippet of a playlist from Spotify. I can paste it anywhere. I can put it on my site. I can put it in a blog post. I can put it wherever, and it helps me express my identity. And that's a simple example of.
It's super fascinating. I think we're gonna round up in the end to talk about what the fashion industry can do. But I'm curious because you mentioned I don't know who of you mentioned other industries that could be beneficial to go into this. What industries are those? What other industries could be sort of pushing fashion in a new direction?
I mean, besides gaming, I know that a lot of scientists are playing a role in material design. You've got Bolt Threads. They're not a fashion brand, but they're playing a really big role in helping fashion brands use a much more sustainable material. Modern Meadow is another one coming up with new fabrics. So, and also washing machines. They're coming up with ways that we can, our clothes cannot kind of create that kind of waste and stuff. And how can we do that? What kind of filter can we make so our washing machines are much more better? So these are people that are playing a role in kind of helping the industry be more sustainable. So everyone's like always saying fashion needs to be more sustainable, but it's not something that the industry can do on its own. We need to work with other people. We need to be able to work together to kind of reach that goal.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you look at the digitalization of fashion, then you got multiple layers. I mean, one of those layers is the garment itself. Another layer is the connectivity, etc., and the services on top and the users. And I mean, just to run a user database with digital services on top, then you need maybe Google as your partner. I mean, Spotify is running on Google service, for example. So then suddenly you need to talk about with Google, and then we have Ericsson, the Swedish telecom company, because you need connected services, and they need to be a fashion player. If we're talking about recycling on an industrial level, even robotic companies like ASEA needs to get involved in becoming fashion companies. But we definitely, it opens up for a much wider selection or of companies.
So you're saying each of these industries could play a major role in a new type of kind of fashion system or fashion industry, or if we define it in a different way?
I think I say they will, actually. Not that they might, but they will play. Because the telecom, I mean, it's too much money, like you said. It's too much money in the fashion industry. People are not stupid, and Fortnite are not stupid, and the gaming industry is not stupid. Everybody understands it's a lot of money to be made. And if we connect, I mean, if you have one phone or you have 10 phones on your body, I mean, connected devices, the telecom companies are interested. That's very, very lucrative. If we're talking about micropayments, then you got Klarna, Visa, Amex, etc. There is no end to how much money can be made from recycling, from sorting of garments, from selling the data of where the fabric is produced. Yeah, so there's a lot of digitalization going on.
Now, I was just going to say that fashion needs to offer a service the same way Netflix offers us a service, and Spotify offers us a service. It needs to be more than going into a shop, buying a dress, and walking out. It needs to be more than that. People want more than just the product now. They want an experience. So if the fashion business model was to change into being a service model, offering consumers something, then I think that will be the way forward as well, and it kind of will make them a lot of money because they will have consumers signing up, kind of being, kind of being there all the time, like they have with Netflix. They've got a lot of customer base. Like you said, they've got the credit cards and everything, so it's continuous. If fashion was able to do that, can you imagine? Pandemic would not be something that would affect them so much because we're signed up.
That's a good point. We've seen fashion is one of the industries that's been hit the hardest of the pandemic because obviously they're dependent on people going to stores, buying clothes, and also I guess when they're not out as much, sitting at home, they're not they don't care as much about their overall appearance, getting on new outfits every day and so forth. So what can the fashion industry do then? What are some of the steps they should be doing, or should we just discard them and wait for the new wave?
No, I don't think we should discard them, but I think it's an evolution, and we're just in the middle of a transformation. It happened in a lot of industries. We've seen it last 10, 15 years. We have a lot of industries that changed completely. And I think the same thing is happening with fashion right now, and it's just started. It depends. I mean, it's a lot what you were saying as well. It's collaboration. I mean, if you find good collaboration, or if you transform your company into something else. I mean, there is a lot of fashion companies that have production chains that no one can copy. Maybe you can become a producer or a service layer instead. So I don't think that the fashion companies have to go away, but they need to transform to fit into a new reality.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. It's all about transformation. And the unfortunate thing about fashion in general is that they're very proud of their craftsmanship. They're very proud of being we do this and we're able to create this this type of ruffle. It's a pride thing. And
how is that unfortunate? Isn't that a good thing?
No, it's unfortunate because when some people have that mindset, then they're less likely to want to adopt technology.
Right.
But what they don't realize is that technology does not take away from that. It enhances it. It helps it. Technology is a tool. It's not something where, that you kind of feel like it's going to change the entire business and take away the artistry of fashion. It's just going to make it better. It will help you achieve your goal faster or in a much more precise or whatever it is that you need. So I think the industry needs to basically educate itself. They need to invest in their future. They need to look at it and be like, okay, these are our problems, which we now all know because of the pandemic has completely highlighted all the problems wrong with the industry, even more so, because I felt like most people felt like they had a choice, but there is no choice.
And also I think that because we talked about that yesterday, because, we sit and talk a lot about technology, both you and me. It doesn't mean that we think technology is a solution for everything, or it's the best way forward, but I think we both agree that it will happen, whatever we want it or not. And if you look at the music industry, for example, did we lose something when we went into streaming? Yeah, a record and the tactile feeling and the big picture, and a lot of people loved, myself included. We lost that. Yeah, we did. Did we win something? Yeah, we did. And I think it's the same with the fashion industry. Do we lose something when we got to the craftsmanship and all of that? Yeah, probably. We might lose some of that, which is a pity, of course.
Yeah, but relating to what we talked about before with the sustainability in the fashion industry, I'm guessing that such a huge part of the fashion industry today is about selling these pretty cheap garments that perhaps does not relate to the pride of craftsmanship and so forth. So I'm guessing craftsmanship in the sense the way we see luxury business over that perhaps could still be around, whereas this the sort of almost felt like before, at least, never-ending spinning growth wheel of fast fashion would maybe that's part of what we should tackle, right?
Fast fashion has become a dirty word. People say it like it's a swear word.
Yeah.
And I think that the consumers are looking for us, the industry, to offer something a little different. Because at the end of the day, though, when you look at it, we take a bird's eye view on the whole situation. It comes down to what's in your pocket. If you got €5 in your pocket, that's all you have. So you're going to spend €5 on a t-shirt. So I always think the solution is, instead of offering a consumer a €5 t-shirt and, let's say, a much more better $9.99 t-shirt that might be a bit more sustainable, just offer the $9.99 t-shirt.
Right.
And take away the one that is less sustainable.
We're going to get to some questions from the audience, but I want to end on one note in our conversation. You mentioned before the issue of education, and we've talked a lot about how the industry should transform, but I'm curious about the role of the designer, because it seems to me that whatever fashion will end up being, it feels like the designer should still be there, the same way the musician is still there in a sort of Spotify type reality, so to speak. Where do you see the role of the designer going forward?
I mean, I think in my experience, I think the designer technology needs to be something that they can use with ease. They should be introduced to it while they're at university, whether it's using 3D printing, whether it's using immersive technologies, or whatever it is, they need to know it when they go into the business. Unfortunately, some students that I've come across are yet to be introduced to this technology. Some of them don't even know it exists. So that to me shows that the education system needs to also evolve. You can't teach something so old school to designers who are destined to be the next in the fashion industry.
Right.
You need to also keep up with what's going on, and the evolution of fashion is also very important. I mean, you were saying some interesting things about education earlier as well.
Yeah, I was just saying something about the designer first, because I think that we talked about that as well. And if you think about it, when we introduce new tools, as a designer, I think that the designer just getting new funny tools to play with, because suddenly you can play with time, for example. I mean, if you're the new Alexander McQueen that wants to be really outrageous, you could have a new suit where it feels like death and you get like this creepy feelings all over your body or whatever, but you can be super provocative and really be an artist and work with the clothes as a piece of art. So I don't think technology is limiting or is taking away the designer. Quite the opposite. They are the driver behind it, and they are the ones that will really explore what can be done and how it can be used, and they will come up with ways that we never dreamed about using technology. I'm absolutely sure about that. But yeah, the educational system, we need to work with that, and I can talk about that for ages as well.
Yeah, we'll save that for another panel.
Yeah.
It seems like
Exactly.
a rabbit hole. But I have a few questions here from the audience. Can e-commerce platforms like Zalando and Amazon or Pinterest use big data and AI to research and design clothes? I guess that's the question. Can they use big data gathered from these platforms? Will they affect how clothes will look like?
I actually had a funny conversation with the guy that designs the AI for Amazon.
Really?
Yeah, in New York. We met in New York, so we had quite an interesting conversation. And one of the things I think that the problem is that when you get on AI, I mean, and the way AI works, without going into that, you train it. And what it can do is that it can, of course, find what people are interested in and design something from that. I think that fashion, when it's at the best, is about it gives people what they didn't know they wanted. That's like the whole idea with fashion.
Right.
You don't want to go to a fashion show and the clothes that they are shown are just what you expected. You want to be shocked. You want to be like, wow, I would never have thought about that. And that's going back to the designer and the role of the designer as well. I think it's really hard until we get really creative AIs. I don't think that they can really compete with a designer.
So just quickly before we end, what do you think the consumer can do if look at people listening to this or in the industry? What are some of the concrete steps one can do today to sort of enhance this evolution or put demands on the fashion industry? Or what should people do? Because sometimes this topic can feel very far away and hard to grasp.
I mean, I would recommend consumers all the time to use their power, because they are quite powerful. At the end of the day, the businesses want them to buy, and if they're not buying, then it's a problem. So I think consumers need to learn about the brands that they are buying from. They need to understand the materials that are used. They need to play a role in this change, because it's not only the fashion businesses, it also has to be the consumers. It goes hand in hand. And I do believe that, there's this conscious consumer thing going on right now. And I do believe they've become more conscious, and they are asking all the right questions, and they want to know more. So that kind of pressure on a business kind of forces them to change.
Right.
Which is a good thing in my book.
Fredrik, any parting words?
No, I think you've wrapped it up. I wasn't expecting a last wrapping up question. No.
Well, good. We'll be back soon with a conversation with the cover star of our first issue, Sophia Benz. Thank you so much for coming and talking about this interesting topic. I'm sure we'll get back to it soon. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.